Silence is also a form of control. That's what French psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan hinted at when he said, "No one stays silent without a reason. They're speaking a language you just don't know how to hear." Have you ever been here? You walked away from a relationship not because you wanted to end it, but because there was nothing left to say to someone who never truly listened. And then you waited, not out of weakness, but because deep down, you hoped the silence would finally make them realize how much you mattered. And if that person is an avoidant, the waiting becomes even more painful. They make you believe they don't care. But the truth is, they don't know how to show care without feeling threatened. So what's really going on inside their mind when you go no contact? Are they thinking of you? Do they miss you? Or have you already been replaced? The answer isn't simple, because avoidants often live with two truths at once. They fear being abandoned, but they also fear being close. In this video, we're going to dive into what avoidants will never say out loud, but secretly hope you'll understand. That their distance isn't rejection. It's a wound that's never been healed. Secret expectation number one, they hope you'll come back. The first thing most people don't realize about avoidance is this: their nervous system has been wired with one core reflex: distance equals connection. From early on, they learned that pulling away, hiding emotion, creating space was the only way others would come closer. That's how love was modeled for them. And now, that same pattern runs silently beneath every adult relationship they enter. So, when you go no contact, when you stop texting, stop explaining, stop chasing, you're not just surprising them, you're short-circuiting their deepest unconscious pattern. On the outside, they may still look fine, maybe even act extra fine, posting casually, staying silent, pretending like you never mattered. But inside, they're counting, how long has it been since you called? Why aren't you reacting like the others? When will you come back? This secret expectation isn't born from arrogance, it's born from experience. They've withdrawn before, and people have always returned. So why is this time different? The longer the silence lasts, the more unsettled they feel. But instead of coming closer, they wait because they don't know how else to respond. They don't have the words to say, "I miss you," but I don't know how to express that without feeling exposed. So they hide inside the only safe place they've ever known, silent. And in that silence, they wait for the one thing they're too afraid to ask for. You. Secret expectation number two. They hope you still love them in silence. And when they wait, but you don't come back a second, quieter expectation begins to grow inside the silence. They start to hope that you're still there in your heart, even without texts, even without presence. They hope you're still holding space for them. This expectation is never spoken aloud. It exists like a soft undercurrent in their mind. They don't need a message. They don't need reassurance. They just need to believe that you're still facing in their direction from afar. For the avoidant, direct intimacy often feels threatening, but emotional attachment from a distance, through imagination, through memory, through the idea that we're still something, brings a sweet kind of comfort. You're not here, but you still belong. They don't have to face their vulnerability. They don't have to be accountable for showing up, but they also don't have to lose you entirely. So in their mind, you become a familiar satellite orbiting quietly without demand or pressure. The silence that's driving you mad, to them, it's a soothing balm. You might be healing. You might be hurting. You might be silent because you're exhausted. But to them, your silence doesn't register as departure. It registers as loyalty. Your quiet becomes a form of unspoken consent. You don't have to say anything. They write the story themselves. That you're giving them time. That you still care just on pause. That you still belong to them just silently. And that's why many avoidants don't feel guilty for not reaching out. In their mind, you're still waiting. And that brings them peace until you stay silent long enough for them to realize the comfort they've been clinging to was never real to begin with. Secret expectation number three. They hope you'll prove they're worthy of love. But here's the truth. Avoidants don't just hope you're still there in silence. They secretly hope you'll come back, not just to love them again, but to prove something they can't believe about themselves, that they are still lovable, that they're still worth loving. You might think they're confident, aloof, even proud, but beneath that exterior is a deep shame, the belief that if someone truly knew me, they wouldn't stay. It's not logic. It's emotional memory wired from early experiences where love came with conditions, rejection, or pain. So in the silence, while you might be asking, what did I do wrong? They're spiraling in much darker questions. Was I ever good enough for them? Did I just push away the only person who truly cared? Is anyone ever really going to love someone like me? But here's the paradox. They can't ask for what they need. They can't say, I feel unworthy. Please love me again. So instead, they wait. They hope you'll find your way back. And if you do, even if it's just one small message deep down, a quiet voice whispers, maybe I'm not as broken as I thought. Your return, in the mind of an avoidant, isn't just affection. It's a symbolic redemption for an old wound they never got to heal. But the irony is they'll never say that out loud. They'll still act calm, cold, maybe even detached. But beneath it all, they're waiting for an answer. They can't voice. You're still lovable, even if you can't believe it yourself. Secret expectation fire. They want to know what you think without opening up themselves. And when they still can't admit how deeply they long to be loved, they enter a more complicated expectation. They want to understand you without letting you understand them. They start doing things no one else would notice. They reread old messages sometimes hundreds of times. They analyze your captions, decode your stories, study every song lyric you share. They reopen old chats, looking for traces of themselves through your words. But here's the truth. They're not doing it to reconnect. They're doing it to feel in control. Facing their own uncertainty feels too painful. Instead of sending a simple, honest text like, I wonder if you still think about me, they take the long route. They check if you're online, dissect old conversations, interpret your behavior, then invent an answer in their mind. They're not safe enough inside to risk rejection again. They want to know what you feel, but not to start a dialogue. They want to soothe their anxiety from a distance. And that's the heart of the paradox. They crave clarity, but fear the cost of vulnerability. They want you to say everything while they say nothing. They search for answers without asking the questions. And you, while you're healing, detaching, moving forward, may have no idea that behind all that silence is someone who's still watching you but too afraid to let you look back at. Secret expectation number 5. They hope you'll come back easier to love. And after watching you from a distance, scanning for signs, analyzing every silence, a new, more subtle expectation forms within the avoidance mind. They hope you'll come back, but as a more manageable version of yourself. Not because you weren't enough, not because you were too emotional, but because in their internal world, the more emotion there is, the more danger there is. They're afraid that if you return with the same depth, same intensity, same longing for connection, they'll drown again in waters that have always felt too deep. Waters that once overwhelmed them in childhood, when love meant pressure, engulfment, or betrayal. So no, they don't reject you, but they can't accept you as you were either. They want you to come back, yes, but this time as someone who's learned, someone more emotionally self-contained, less demanding, less attached. They want you to return stronger, more independent, needing less so they don't have to face their own emotional panic. In their mind, this is how love might work. Not because you were too much, but because they were never enough. They can't process closeness, so they ask silently that you shrink your vibrancy down to something they can survive. And so they imagine you'll come back no longer angry. You'll come back no longer expecting change. You'll come back still loving, but with less need. They want love without pressure. They want to be missed, but not needed. Because if you need them, you can hurt them. But if you just want them gently, without urgency or demand, maybe, just maybe, they won't have to run. This is the heartbreak of loving an avoidant. The more fully you love them, the more threatened they feel. But when you finally turn inward, love yourself more. Stop chasing. Stop needing. That's when you become safe in their eyes. Ironically, they come back not when you need them, but when you don't, and not because you became less, but because you stopped handing your emotional truth to someone who couldn't hold it. And in that moment, you're no longer the one being chosen. You become the one who chooses If you've ever felt invisible in a relationship with an avoidant, it's not because you lacked light. It's because you shone too brightly into corners they weren't ready to see. You don't need to shrink to fit someone else's limits. You don't need to stay silent to keep someone who's afraid to step close. All you need to remember is this: their absence does not define your worth. Every time you choose healing over chasing, you return to yourself. Every time your silence comes not from despair, but from learning to love yourself without begging for someone's affection, you grow. And if they come back, that's not the prize. It's just a chance to ask yourself, does this person still deserve the heart I've worked so hard to heal? Whether they return or not, let that no longer be the center of your story, because the most important part, the most beautiful part, is that you finally stepped out of the cycle. You stopped being the one waiting at the door. You became the one who knows they're worth being met fully, deeply, and without fear.